Know Your Candidate. Presented by Portland is Possible, broadcasted by XRAY FM. In this segment, we offer a brief background on the visionary candidates that are proudly standing and running for the acclaimed Portland Area City Council. For now, we have a candidate of District 2 that incorporates St. John's, Kenton, Hayden Island, Mississippi, and Alberta neighborhoods.
My name is Jonathan Tasini. I'm running for City Council District 2.
What are the biggest impediments to Portland making progress on its environmental, economic, and cultural goals in the next decade?
Well, look, I'm running principally because I'm a labor person. I have the most support from unions in the entire city of any city council candidate, the most endorsements, and I'm running basically to raise people's wages. And I believe wage inequality, the fact that people cannot afford the rent, the fact that people are constantly trying to struggle to pay the bills, that is the fundamental thing that is drawing and holding back the city. And I don't see most candidates, frankly, talking about that. And I think that is fundamentally what is happening to working people in the city.
Where do you see art institutions in 20 years? How are they different than today?
Well, I would like to see them even better funded. And when I think of art, I think principally, because that's me, I think of music. And I would like to see institutions, music institutions, I think of the Blues Fest, fully funded, that they're more accessible throughout the city. And most important, that musicians make a decent living. And one thing that I've been discussing with active musicians is how do we make sure that at venues, musicians actually get the same kind of tip that servers do in order to pay for their rent and make sure they make a living. You know, the city council could, I don't know if you could impose it, but strongly recommend that all music venues have that as on the, you know, you've got all the other things, right? Tax tip, musician, I would call it musician gratuity or something like that, or musician advancement.
How do you plan to collaborate with other councilors, both in and out of your district, to create meaningful progress?
Well, for 40 years as a union activist and 13 years that I ran my local union, I was president of the Writers Union, UAW Local 1981, I had to build coalitions in order to advance our agenda. So I think it's going to be fairly straightforward to me to work with the various councils. And one thing I was thinking of in terms of the structure, we're going to have to divide up our areas of expertise, and I think part of that will be a conversation. I happen to have an expertise in budgeting and finances, but somebody else might really feel passionate about transportation or parks. All that kind of collaboration of where everybody will put their energy will be part of the conversation. And then in terms of the other two people that I'd work with in the district, that's about sitting down and thinking about our district and saying, what's our expertise? What's our interest? How can we divide up the work so that we can serve our constituents in the most efficient and effective way?
In 30 years, what should Portland be known for?
Having eliminated inequality, I know this is a theme for me. My passion is about working people, and I would like to see a city where everybody can pay the rent, which would mean having a minimum wage of at least $25 an hour, which is something I'm advocating for. It's clearly something we have to pass through the state ballot or legislature. If we can create a city where every single person can make a decent living, pay the rent, then everything else comes after that. We'll have economic vitality. That's what I'd like to see Portland be. That's what I'd like to see Portland be, a beacon for the entire country, which is struggling with inequality.
As Portland develops a vision for the future of the city, what are two groups or communities that are not always at the table that you are committed to engaging?
Again, working people and unions. I think that that's two different groups because not everybody, unfortunately, is in a union. But unions should be at the table, not just in the public sector, but in the private sector. We should not tolerate in this city at all employers who are abusive, employers who are anti-union. I have committed that if there's an employer who's abusive, who has a contract with the city, I'm going to move to cancel that contract with that employer until that employer gets right with their workers. Our workers are the core of our city. The people who make everything work, the people who create the value, are the working people of this city.
Lightning round. If you could wave a magic wand to make one thing happen in Portland, what would you do?
I'd want to create the Frog Ferry, which I'm kind of passionate about, which would be the ferry that would go along with Willamette. I'm supporting it. I think it's a wonderful, in some ways, small bore project, but think about it. You could deal with climate change, transportation, make life easier, and it would be a tourist beacon that would go all along the land. We have this richness of this river that we are not exploiting. So if I could wave that magic wand, it would be to have that frog ferry operating throughout the day and making life so much easier to basically transport oneself across the city.
Where do you get your coffee?
Well, I'm kind of a coffee snob, so I have to answer that in two ways. One is I make it myself, and so I get my coffee in my kitchen. I'm going to admit this, an espresso machine, so I'm very, very particular about my coffee. But if I go outside for an afternoon coffee, I go to Hypnos, which is just up the street from me. I live in Elliott, and it's just up on North Williams.
What events or place in Portland that no longer exists do you wish you could bring back?
I know this is small bore, but I think about it a lot. It's the breakfast place down the street from me that didn't survive COVID, unfortunately. It was this really lovely small diner. I usually went there on Sunday mornings, and it was a 5-minute walk, and I really missed that spot. I wish we could bring that back.
What restaurant or food cart is totally underrated?
What restaurant is underrated? Well, I don't want to say the name because then I don't want it packed with everybody coming in, and then you can't ever get food there. But the Thai place near in my neighborhood, that's again walking distance from my house.
What's the last show or performance you saw?
I think I'd have to say Neil Young, actually at the Ridgefield up in Washington. I'm a huge Neil Young fan and also a Deadhead, Grateful Dead, but it was Neil Young, and he just always is the same, and he has consistently been this incredible musician for, it shows my age, but at least 50 years that I remember him.
So now you know your candidate, or a bit about them. We like to thank the visionary candidates, also like to especially thank all the volunteers and organizations that put this together. We couldn't do this without you. To look at each candidate, be a good Portland citizen, and to be a dashing and informed voter, listen to XRAY FM to learn about ballots and the new ranked choice voting system. And check out portlandpossible.org.